I'm going to give you 5 reasons why you do not want to ever find a massive gold nugget. It could literally ruin your life. Let's start with reason number 1. There's a line in the mining regulations, 1981, that I'd bet good money that you've never read. Regulation 4. A miner's right holder may not remove more than 20 kilograms of sample or specimen from Crown land on any single occasion. Your $30 miner's right, that little card that sits in your wallet right now, has a weight limit, and a 50-kilo gold nugget is 2.5 times over it. Hey guys, good to see you again. I'm Bruce, the part-time prospector. Now, we've all had that amazing daydream, haven't we? We're out there on a Tuesday morning. It's somewhere in the gold fields, blue sky, red dirt, cool air, and your detector's absolutely losing its mind on some sort of signal. You dig and you keep on digging. And what you pull out is something that's basically out of this world. A gold nugget with 50 kilos of gold. At today's spot price, that's north of $7.5 million. But here's the question I want to spend some time on today. What actually happens next? Because most prospectors have never thought past the finding. And some of what I'm going to tell you in this video is going to absolutely surprise you. Let's start with that miner's right, because that's the bit that's almost no one ever reads. Your miner's right is not a title deed. Under the Mining Act 1978, all gold in WA is declared the property of the Crown. All gold. What your miner's right gives you is the privilege, a legal privilege, to search for gold and retain what you find within the rules. And Regulation 4 is a rule. Now, a 50-kilo nugget is one specimen. You cannot break it up into multiple chunks to get around the limit. The moment you do that, it is not a specimen anymore. You've just processed Crown gold without the appropriate authority. That's a different problem entirely. So what are the consequences of removing a specimen over 20 kilos on a miner's right? You know what? That's a generally hard question to answer because the regulations don't spell it out clearly. And that ambiguity at a $7 million scale is not your friend. What I tell any prospector who found themselves in this situation is this: don't move it. Don't call your mate. Don't photograph it and put it on Instagram. Instead, mark the GPS. Photograph it where it sits, in situ, in ground. That's your provenance documentation starting point. And get yourself to a phone signal and call a mining lawyer. Not a general solicitor, not the local lawyer you use for property settlement, a mining lawyer. There are firms in Perth that handle this sort of thing. That is step 1. Everything else flows from that call. Now, here's where it gets interesting because we've actually been here before, sort of. February 1869, 2 blokes named John Deason and Richard Oates are working a patch near Malagal in Victoria, and they find something extraordinary: a 72-kilogram gold specimen just below the surface. The welcome stranger. Still the largest alluvial gold nugget ever recorded in the world. It's a stonking big find by any measure. Within 3 days, they've broken it up with a blacksmith's hammer. Not because they wanted to, because the thing was so large it wouldn't fit on the weighing scales at the local bank. And there was no other mechanism to realize its value. So they smashed it, weighed it in bits, and the bank melted it down. So what survives today is a cast, a plastic cast made at the moment of discovery. That's all that's left of the largest gold nugget ever found. Now, I tell that story because I want you to understand something. Decent Oates had a simple problem, a genuine, terrible, beautiful, expensive problem, but a simple one. No phone signal needed, no mining lawyers, no ATO, no heritage legislation, no government acquisition powers. They had a hammer and a bank. Done. You, in 2026, have a few more complications floating around, and the next few sections are going to explain exactly how complicated. Let's talk about the ATO. Now, the tax treatment of a recreational gold find sits in a grey area that most prospectors never have to worry about because most fines are small enough that it doesn't come up. A gram here, a couple of ounces there, you're not getting a letter from the ATO. At $7.5 million, you're getting a letter. Let me run you through the numbers because I think this is where most people understanding of what they actually walk away with goes a bit sideways. First, deductions, and this one surprises people, is the WA gold royalty. Under the Mining Act, royalties are payable on gold won in Western Australia at 2.5% of net value. First, I must say I'm not an accountant. I'm not a solicitor. I'm not giving you any financial or legal advice. This is just my understanding of things. Please do your own due diligence. On a $7.5 million fine, that's roughly about $187,500, so $187,500 off the top before you've spoken to anyone. Now the ATO. If this is treated as a hobby fine, you're looking at capital gains tax with a 50% CGT discount for individuals. And by the way, the timing question of when you acquired something you just dug out of the ground is a little bit murky. You're paying capital gains tax on roughly half the net gain at the top marginal rate. If the ATO decides this looks more like a business activity and a fine of this value has a way of making the ATO very curious about your profit motives, the discount goes away. The full gain may be assessable as income. So let's run the numbers conservatively. Gross, $7.5 million. Royalties, this is WA government, $187,500. Legal and professional fees, and you're going to need these, let's call it $150,000. Capital gains tax on the 50% of the net gain of the top bracket, somewhere around about a 1.6 million. Best case conservative assumptions, you're netting about 5.5 million. That's before storage, security, insurance, and auction commissions, which we'll get to. Now, don't get me wrong, 5.5 million is still a lot of money. I'm not trying to make you feel bad about it, but the point is, you need a mining specialist tax accountant before you even make a single decision about to handle this gold. Not your regular accountant down at the shopping center, someone who's navigated this specific territory before. And you know what? The tax is actually not the most uncomfortable part of the story. The next bit is. Here's something that catches people off guard. Worth $7.5 million and can get $7.5 million for it are two very different sentences. A 5-ounce nugget is tradable. Walk into any gold dealer in Kalgoorlie, walk out with close to spot price, clean transaction, no drama. A 50-kilo gold nugget, not tradable. The moment it exists, and honestly, the moment word gets out that it might exist, it is famous. And fame, paradoxically, is the enemy of a clean sale. You've basically got three options. Option one, sell for melt value. Large-scale gold is regulated activity, and you need to declare the gold formally, pay the royalties we just talked about, navigate the tax situation, and the administrative burden is significant, and the timeline is not short. You've also just destroyed something of potential enormous scientific and historic value, which, as we'll get to in a moment, attracts its own set of problems. Option two, sell as a specimen. Now you're looking at a buyer with a cool $7.5 million just sitting in the bank, available for a single mineral specimen in a market that sees maybe 2, maybe 3 comparable transactions globally per decade. Any dealer in Kalgoorlie, even the big ones, don't have that liquidity. And so you're talking international collectors here, sovereign wealth institutions, major natural history museums. Christie's can handle an item at this price point, no problems. They'll charge 15 to 25% commission. They want provenance. They want documentation that you may not have at that moment. And they'll take 6 months minimum to arrange a sale. Option three, export it. Export of a significant mineral specimen from Australia requires Commonwealth approval. This is not a quick process, and it's not guaranteed, and there's every chance they're not going to grant it. In every scenario, every one, the path from I found this to money in the account is measured in months, more likely years, not days. So plan accordingly. This is the section I know that a few of you are going to want to skip. Please don't. Objects of exceptional historical, scientific, and cultural significance can attract government acquisition. These are government departments that have the power to operate completely independent of your position as the finder. The WA Museum, the National Museum of Australia, and various Commonwealth agencies, they all have the mandate and the statutory authority to pursue acquisitions of national significant object. A 50-kilo gold nugget almost certainly qualifies as nationally significant. An acquisition in this context means the government can move in to take the possession of the specimen. You may be entitled to compensation, but I want to be clear about this. Compensation and market value are not the same. The negotiation position is asymmetric. You're in a hurry, they are not, and they know it. It gets a bit more complicated again if the find sits near areas of cultural significance to Aboriginal communities, which covers more of the WA goldfields than a lot of prospectors actually realise. Additional consultation processes apply, and they take time, and none of this is certain to happen. But it is possible enough that it absolutely needs to be part of your thinking, and you need legal advice that covers this ground, not just the mining law yet, and it's actually the thing I want you to sit with for a moment. You're probably alone when you find it, out in the bush somewhere, possibly without a phone signal, and you've got a $7.5 million legal question sitting in a hole at your feet. And every problem I've described in this video is landing on you at the same time. The legal question, the tax question, the security question, the government acquisition question, and the question of who you can trust to call first. And the clock is running because the longer this stays unresolved, the more likely that word gets out. Someone sees your vehicle. Someone notices you came back from a prospecting trip looking a bit pale and won't talk about what's happened. So what do you actually do in the first 30 minutes? Mark the GPS coordinates precisely. Photograph the specimen in situ, in the ground. Don't move it. Record the tenement status of the ground you're on, date, time, location. This is your provenance chain starting. Then get yourself to a phone signal, however far that is, and call a mining lawyer before you tell a single other person. Not your mate, not your wife, a mining lawyer. That one call determines the shape of everything that follows. I want to say something that doesn't get said much in conversations about big finds. I've spoken to prospectors who've made very significant discoveries. Sure, not quite at the scale, but significant enough. And more than one of them has told me quietly that they wish they'd never dug that particular hole. That the hobby they loved turned into a legal proceeding. Something that sat in a vault for 18 months while lawyers argued. Relationships that took a battering over an asset no one could actually access or use. The bush, which was a refuge, the thing they went out there for, became a liability. I'm not saying this is the universal experience. Some large finds do resolve cleanly, and the finder does walk away very well. But the stress, the months of uncertainty, the professional fees, the unwanted attention, the loss of a simple pleasure that brought them out there in the first place, that's real. Because nobody likes to admit that a windfall made them miserable. So what's the takeaway here? It's not, don't go prospecting. Quite the opposite. Understanding these realities is part of being a serious, informed prospector. The kind who's thought through things before they happen, not after. The sweet spot is definitely not zero. It's the find that's big enough to be generally exciting and small enough to cash bank and brag about down at the pub with none of the drama. A 5-ounce nugget will make your year. A 20-gram nugget will put a grin on your face. These finds happen. They happen in WA very regularly to prospectors who put themselves on the right ground, people who understand the geology, who know how to read the government data, who aren't just wandering around hopefully. That's the edge that separates the people who find gold from the people who mostly find ironstone and boot nails. It comes down to research, knowing how to read a tenement map, understanding what historical drilling and soil sample data can tell you about prospective ground, using WAMX, MineX, GeoView, and the same data sets I use professionally to put yourself in places where probability is generally higher than average. If you want to start researching ground the way an exploration geologist would, that's exactly what I built goldprospectingwa.com for. Real data, updated daily in a format that makes sense for recreational prospectors who want to find gold rather than fill in spreadsheets. Have a look if you're keen. I hope this video has been of value. I know it's a bit of an unusual one. Not many prospecting channels spend time on the legal and the financial side of massive finds. But I reckon you should know what you're getting into before it happens, not after. If you found it useful, I'd love it if you could give me a like. Leave a comment below if you've got questions or if there's an angle I missed. Happy days if you've spotted something I haven't. And if you'd like to see more of this kind of thing, I'd really appreciate it if you consider subscribing. Thanks guys, and take care out there, and I'll see you on the next video.